It's a Monday, man. I'm tired. Zenless, don't do this again. The ZZZ 2.3 live stream happened today, and there was a lot, and I mean a lot of information to go over with what everything was being shown during that live stream. But you guys already know that whenever these happens, we always have to do one of the most important videos, which is breaking down every character that was showcased within the stream. Now, we're going to be going over within this video Komano, Manato, and Lucia, because these are the first two characters coming within 2.3 on the same banner with one another. And then we'll be following up with a Yidhari video after this, so definitely stay tuned for that. But within this video, we're going to be going over everything about Komano and Lucia, going over how these characters overall play from based off the information that we've been provided, as well as providing some team suggestions that I think will work well with them based on the information that was presented. But before we get into that, be sure to check out LD Shop to get the best discounts on your 2.0 pools. LD Shop is a formal top-up platform created by LD Player Emulator Group. They offer amazing discounts on a multitude of games through official partnership with Razor Gold, who is the official top-up partner of HoYoverse. This means that they're a safe and reliable platform for you to use, and so many players have left amazing ratings and reviews. Now, I know you guys are already waiting to see how do you get those sweet Zenless deals. Well, all you have to do is click on Zenless Zone Zero at ldshop.gg, and you'll see that there's a plethora of discounts to choose from at rates better than the official game. They offer deals for in and out memberships. You can grab character skins for a low price, and they even have massive discounted bundles that guarantee you the new limited character or their W engine. Now, once you have an item you want to purchase, all you need to do is select your server region and enter your UID. Then bam, your currency should be loaded into your account in 5 minutes or less. Now, something that I almost forgot to mention is that if you haven't topped up in Zenless before and you want to get that big bonus, if you do it on LD Shop, you'll not only still get the discounts that they offer, but you'll also get that big top up bonus in game. That's just a deal that you can't beat. So if you guys still need to grab those new units, be sure to use my link in the description or comment section below to receive their 15% off coupon, which can save you up to $50 towards the units that you want. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start with the character that I'm most excited for, my man Manato. Manato is a S rank fire rupture unit that sacrifices his HP in order to deal massive fire and sheer damage. How he does this is by accumulating his blazing heart resource, which can be done by consuming his HP when holding his special attack or by triggering his defensive assist. Once enough blazing heart is accumulated, Manato enters the molten edge stage, which allows him to trigger his core passive mighty molten edge whenever he consumes any additional HP with his skills. While this passive is active, Manato gains additional sheer force in combat based on his max HP, and the fire damage dealt by his skills will now be considered sheer damage. This is really good buff for Manato because when in the state, he has access to so many different moves that deal fire damage, like his enhanced basics, his special attack, and even his assist follow-up. Because of all of this, it allows him to easily access his core passive while also granting him additional benefits like ignoring his enemy defense due to these attacks being considered sheer damage, increasing his own crit damage and adrenaline recovery, while also having sheer force multiplier being tied to these skills. This character having access to all this must mean he has the highest damage potential out of any A ranks in the entire game, because I just can't imagine any of the A ranks on our current roster being able to compete with a kid like this. This actually makes me really excited for the character, and hopefully means that he has a strong future ahead of him as a DPS, because if we all know, normally when an A rank comes out as a DPS unit, they tend to be one of the main ones to fall off first, since so many different DPS ends up coming out within the future. But my hope is that with Manato looking like such a strong rupture agent, he'll be able to stand the test of time just a little bit longer than most of our A ranks and being able to hold his own. Also, I just want to make sure I comment that most of our A ranks are also still able to clear a lot of content right now, so him being in a healthy position is actually looking pretty good, at least future wise. Now, I know after mentioning so many things that involve consuming Manato's health, you guys are probably wondering how will this character even be able to stay alive during the in-game content we've been experiencing. Well, in his own kit, Manato actually has a few key moves that restores HP for him. For instance, if he's hit during the animation of his special attack, he will restore a percentage of his HP back. While using his EX special attack, he'll deal massive fire damage and restore a chunk of his HP as well. And with his additional ability, Manato gains access to stacks known as Remnant Flames whenever he triggers his chain attack and ultimate. And what these stacks do is that they restore Manato's HP whenever he fulfills certain conditions while in combat, as long as he has a support or stun unit on his team. If I had to guess, these conditions seem to be using attacks that would normally consume Manato's HP, which would mean that these stacks are allowing him to basically counteract the HP being taken from him with these skills. That would make the most sense to me, as when looking looking at this character's kit, he seems like he's going to be pretty challenging for casual players to get a hang of, especially a lot of people that are really excited for him if they're casual players. And I think when having abilities like this that are able to easily give his HP back, it'll make piloting this character a lot easier. Speaking of piloting, I almost forgot to mention that Manato's basic attacks has a unique gimmick that allows him to ignite his blade into flames, dealing additional fire damage if you press special attack in between each basic. This is an execution gimmick tied to the character, and it probably reminds you guys kind of like Soldier 11's perfect timing gimmick with her slashes, but if you are a cultured and based action game head, you guys know that this is more so inspired by the exceed mechanic from Nero in DMC 5. I love this so much about this character because if you guys didn't know, Nero is by far one of my favorite characters within the DMC franchise because of his design and his unique exceed mechanic alone. And to say that we actually have a Zenless character that's taking inspiration from that and being applied to especially one of the characters that I love the most due to their design in the game, this is just a perfect matchup for me. It's a match made in heaven, to the point that I'm not even gonna lie, my girl Soldier 11 might have to watch out. A new main might be in town. Now, I'm not sure if this mechanic can be used during his molten edge state, since his basic attacks become enhanced anyway, meaning that they're already going to be ignited by fire. If I had to guess, it's probably going to be similar to Soldier 11's, where it's mostly going to be used whenever he doesn't have any blazing heart available to enter molten edge. All in all though, Manato seems like he's going to be a DPS monster with an insane rupture kit like this. Ideally, you just want to accumulate blazing heart as quickly as you can, which having him come on field with his defensive assist seems like the best way to do so. This way he's automatically entering the field in molten edge state, and you can trigger his assist follow-up to activate his core passive, granting all of his buffs that we mentioned before in a matter of seconds. Then from there, you'll be able to just use his enhanced basics to deal massive fire and sheer damage. Whenever his HP gets too low, you can then use his EX special attack to heal himself if you have any adrenaline available, or you can just perfectly time his special attacks whenever an enemy tries to interrupt you in order to heal yourself as well. After all this, you should be low enough on resources, which then grants you time to switch in your other units to apply their buffs and potentially trigger stun. Once the stun window has been entered, this is the perfect time to trigger Manato's chain attack to build remnant flame stacks and trigger his ultimate for massive fire and sheer damage. Then you just repeat his DPS rotation with his basic attacks all over again until you burn out of adrenaline with his EX special attack. And yeah, that's simply Manato. He's pretty straightforward of a character that I think he'll be pretty easy to pick up at a basic level for players, but I think optimizing this character is actually going to be pretty hard since he has so many things tied to his kit about sacrificing his HP. I think him being a low HP game character is going to be one of the in-game goals with his design, so you're probably not going to want to be healing himself but so often, because he's going to probably want to live on that edge a bit more in order to maximize his DPS. This is something that sounds super exciting for me. That's something that I can't wait to step into with this character, because I already know I'm locked in with him. He's too sick. He's my sole bad guy and my Nero. I love him so much, and I can't wait until we finally get our hands on him. But enough of talking about the character's kits and breaking it down. Let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of teams that I think Komano will work well with. Since Komano is a character that's focused around sacrificing his HP, as well as he's required to have a support or stun unit on his team to trigger his additional ability, I think that a lot of his teams are pretty straightforward right now, but there is a little bit of experimentation that we can have once this character comes out. Some of the easy teams that I directly see him working with is with Komano, Jué Qū Lucia, and Jué Qū on his team can be subbed out for Pokra. And this is because once we talk about Lucia, you guys realize that she has a support that is designed to buff rupture units overall, as well as that Jué Qū is a character that's going to be providing aftershots and great crit damage buffs, ultimate buffs, as well as being able to allow Manato to get to his ultimate a lot faster. Next, we have Komano Lighter Orphe, which is a team that I think is going to be really strong as well, but it's not really designed to overall support Manato completely, but more so to be able to support Manato and Orphe as two separate DPS. This is kind of like how the Seed and Orphe synergy is going on right now, but instead they don't buff one another. Komano is just taking the benefits from Lighter and Orphe is just being buffed by Lighter in order to keep up with the overall DPS while she's performing it off field. I think this team will be really good, but it will require you to understand Manato's kit really well and be able to maintain his life while consuming all your HP on your own. This is something that's probably going to be a little bit harder for casual players, but I think it's going to be a strong team overall. Then we have the Omega wheelchair team of Komano, Lucia, Astra, Astra, which is a team that I think is going to be really strong. It's going to easily be able to allow Komano to deal some insane damage if you only want to really focus on playing him. It's definitely not a team that I overall suggest, as you can easily slot an Astra on a different team to help support other units, but if you just want to try it out in a very hyper carry focused comp, you can easily do so. And then for his free to play options, I'm seeing Komano Pan Poker to be a decent pick. Not the greatest, but this team will be overall designed in order to directly just buffing Komano as a whole, as well as Pan being one of the only free to play options we have to provide sheer force damage bonuses. He's going to be a really good plug and play pick for Komano here. And then we have Komano Pan Lucy for again Pan providing the same thing, as well as Lucy being able to provide her small attack buffs, which are decent and can be taken advantage of, as well as her being able to deal a bit of damage herself due to how she's built as a support unit. But again, overall, these are just budget options for you to have if you're a free to play player. Overall though, I think Komano will have even more access to different teams once we experiment a bit more and see what other future units are coming, because right now I think we're definitely in the beginning of the Rupture phase, and we're going to be getting a lot more characters to support this class, so the future of Komano is overall looking pretty bright. But enough of this character. Even though I love him so much and I want to talk more about him, we need to talk about our new ether support, Lucia. Lucia is an S rank ether support that is able to provide her team a multitude of buffs when she enters a status known as the Dream State. In order for Lucia to enter this state, she needs to accumulate dream points over time, which can be attained whenever she enters the battlefield and uses her skills like EX Special Attack and Ultimate. Once enough points are accumulated, Lucia enters the Dream State, granting her access to Whim and Harmony attacks while also activating Ethereal Veil Wellspring. From what it seems, Whim and Harmony attacks are just her normal skills like Basic Attack, Special Attacks, EX Specials, and even Aftershocks. They've just been given these tags to apply her buff, Dreamer's Nursery Rhyme, which increases the damage dealt for all squad members. Now the Ether Veil is pretty similar to Astra's Idolette Cadenza state, where the buff effect is just applied to the entire field, and whenever it's triggered, it increases the maximum HP for the entire squad. These buffs seem to be really good for our new upcoming Rupture units, Manata and Yidhari, joining us in 2.3, because they both have gimmicks that require them to sacrifice their HP in order to increase how much damage they deal. So essentially having a support that provides you extra access to more HP just makes the characters overall so much stronger, which is more than likely why Lucia is one of the best slot options for both of those units. Now these buffs also complement Lucia, as her EX Special Attack is considered an Harmony move, which means it will apply the damage dealt buff as well as another buff known as Dark Breaker, which grants her squad a boost in sheer force. The strength of this buff increases based on Lucia's initial HP, and the damage from Harmony skill increases on the final hits based on a percentage of Lucia's health. This is overall a pretty interesting buff, because what this tells me is that not only will Lucia be an amazing support for Rupture units, but it seems like she's going to be similar to some of our older support units like Sukaku and Lucy, where she might have a little bit of DPS potential here due to her increasing her own damage. This could be a stretch, and I could be really overthinking this, but to me that just has to be the case, because why would we even care about increasing her own DPS if this isn't the case? We didn't have her additional ability, which grants the Dark Breaker buff from her EX Special Attack an additional crit damage buff for her squad when she has a Rupture or Stun agent on her team. This makes this buff even nicer and complements the other Rupture units that we mentioned before even better, because more damage is always great for DPS. Finally, we have her ultimate, which summons a huge ethereal for Lucia to ride on and wreak havoc amongst her enemies. The skill deals a large amount of AoE damage and leaves behind a Starlight's Convergence, which is basically a healing field that you can send your characters to sit in order for them to restore HP over time. Again, really nice for our new Rupture units. Not only does this ultimate provide this, it also provides extra benefit if certain conditions are met with Lucia's Dream State and her Ether Veil. If Lucia is in Dream State and the Ether Veil is active, her ultimate will extend the duration of Ether Veil. If she's not in Dream State, her ultimate will instantly give her maximum dream points to enter it. And if she is in Dream State, she'll regain another full bar of dream points once she exits the state, so she can enter Dream State once again. I know there was a lot to say, but basically her ultimate just makes sure that she always have the points and stuff available to be able to enter Dream State or to extend her Ethereal Veil in order to make sure that she basically constantly has her buffs active. All in all though, your goal with Lucia is to have her enter the Dream State as soon as possible, which seems to be easy to do as she'll have a good amount of dream points accumulated when she enters the battlefield, and using her EX Special should enter her into the state immediately. Once Dream State is active, Lucia then needs to trigger Whim attacks to turn them into Harmony, so she can apply her Dreamer's Nursery Rhyme buff and the Ether Veil buff, which should have immediately activated anyway once you enter the Dream State. At this point, you can then quick assist to your DPS and have Lucia consume dream points to trigger aftershocks, allowing her to keep her buffs up while she's off field. field. Once she has energy or her ultimate available, you can then bring Lucia back on field to trigger her EX special attack and or ultimate to reapply her buffs while also gaining all the massive benefits we mentioned before from her ultimate. Overall though, Lucia seems to be pretty straightforward as everything is centered around her whole dream gimmick, making her support is seemingly going to be really good for Rupture specifically. What's interesting about her though is that she seems to be a bit more active on field at times while still maintaining an off-field presence, kind of like Yidhari. I like this design direction for supports a lot because I love to be able to control my units more and actually feel like I have an actual character on my team and not just stat sticks. That's something that I've mentioned plenty of times that I don't like about some of the design choices with Zenless characters, but it seems like with Lucia, that's not what they're exactly doing with her, which I love so much. I also kind of want to mention that outside of the other two premium supports, this is actually our first support that doesn't seem like they're going to be able to work well with our other DPS in the game, like our anomaly and attack units. Like I mentioned before, she seemed like that she's only really going to be good for Rupture units, meaning that she's extremely niching down in comparison to our other limited supports. I don't think this is really an issue as those two other supports can also complement Rupture pretty well. So having a support that niches down and focuses on Rupture specifically, to me feels like a good direction, as I think more niche team comps need to be developed in order for classes to rise up and compete with one another in Zenless. But enough of the character breakdown, we've finished talking about her. Let's talk about Lucia teams. Lucia again is a character that is designed to be centered around her Rupture units, and to activate her additional ability, you need to have at least a Rupture or a stun agent on her team. So when you're coming up with team comps for Lucia, I think it's pretty straightforward, as all you want to do is insert any form of Rupture agent here, and then you can put a stunner and Lucia on the team. For some examples, you have Yizhuan, Jifufu, Lucia, and you can swap out Jifufu with Poker or Pan, and then with Yizhuan, you can swap her out for Komano and Yidhari. It's actually really that simple. Again, if you also want to go for the wheelchair dynamic that we spoke about earlier, you can also do Yizhuan, Komano, or Yidhari and have Astra and Lucia on a team, and this would be a really strong comp as well. And then you can even go for some of the Komano teams I mentioned before, like having Pan or Poker with any of the Rupture units, as well as having Pan and Lucy with them as well. Pretty straightforward, like I said before, as a lot of these characters are going to be sharing the same units since the Rupture unit is still early on, so there aren't really too many options that you can go for at this current moment. But so far, the options that they do have are really strong and really valuable, putting them in a really good position when starting off. And if I'm going to be honest, Lucia is one of the best picks that you can pick up if you want to invest into the Rupture class right now. But you guys know me, I'm not forcing you guys to pull for anything. Pull for wherever you like and what interests you. I'm just here to tell you how overall I feel about the character standing and their power, and if they're going to be overall good. Which brings me to the pull value for both of these units. Komano, we really need to discuss pull value overall, because if you're going to be pulling for Lucia, more than likely you're going to be getting copies of Komano, and due to him being an A rank, you're going to eventually be able to max him out at some point within the future. More than likely you're going to have him on your account anyway. But when it comes to the value of Lucia, Lucia is a great option to go for, again, if you plan to invest into the Rupture meta. If you don't have any Rupture units at this moment that doesn't interest you, as well as that you don't feel like building Komano right now, then I don't think Lucia is worth going for, as she's just going to be a unit that's going to be sitting on your account. She's in a support, so she's going to be heavily rerun just like Yidhari and Astra, so she will be a lot easier to obtain in the future if you guys want to wait out and grab a Rupture unit that you like within the future. But just be mindful that Rupture characters are probably going to be on the way pretty fast, so if you kind of want to get ahead of the game and get some future investment going on, she will be a great character pickup if you do feel like at some point you are going to be grabbing a Rupture character at some point. Again, Komano comes with her, so you will automatically have an option to use even if you don't plan to grab a limited Rupture agent, so there's always going to be some use for her when pulling on her banner. But overall though, that's everything I have to talk about in regards to Komano and Lucia in this video. These characters are looking really good and have me really excited for 2.3, so I can't wait to get my hands on both of these units and see how they perform. Let me know in the comments below how you guys are feeling about 2.3 and these characters overall, as well as how do you feel about some of those new characters that we're showing off within the stream as well. I'm going to try to make a video on them this week if I have time. There's so much to cover with all the news that they released in 2.3, but just know I'm super excited for the Zenyatta robot guy. He looks super sick to me. But anyways, I appreciate you guys and all your love and support. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and always remember to believe in you that believes in yourself. I'll see you guys in the next one.